Move it, old man. Some of us actually have work. He didn't flinch, just wiped the glass with a worn cloth and pulled the lever to open the door. Same steel-toed boots, same silent entrance. Every morning was a copy of the last, until this one. As a Navy recruit stepped aboard, his foot hesitated mid-air. He'd seen something beneath the rolled cuff of the driver's sleeve, barely visible beneath deep brown skin and sun-aged folds. A symbol no rookie would mistake, the SEAL trident. The recruit stiffened instinctively, back straight, jaw locked. The driver didn't look at him. Clock's moving, sailor. The silence that followed swallowed the whole bus. If you know that real legends don't need applause, drop your thoughts below. Bus 12 showed up at exactly 5:45 a.m. each day, no matter the weather, no matter the headlines. Behind the wheel was a man in his 70s, skin the shade of worn mahogany, eyes like storm clouds about to break. His hands, rough and broad, gripped the wheel like it still meant something. No greetings, no smiles, just the quiet clockwork motion of a man who treated his shift like deployment. His ID tag read, Thomas, but no one ever used it. Around the depot, they called him Boots, or Old School. The name stuck longer than his real one ever did. He wore company blues, same as everyone else. But somehow, on him, they didn't feel like a uniform. They felt like armor. Can't believe they haven't put him out to pasture yet, muttered Davis, a younger driver, sipping his coffee as he watched from the lot. He probably needs GPS just to find the steering wheel. Someone else laughed. Thomas kept his back to them, checking the tire pressure, mirrors, door hydraulics, every detail exact. His left sleeve always rolled just shy of his elbow, just enough to breathe, just enough to reveal history. Davis shook his head. Guy's like a ghost. Same route, same stare. Probably dreams in engine codes. What most folks didn't know, what management didn't advertise, was that in over a decade, Thomas had never missed a shift. Not during the deep freeze that shut down half the city. Not during the riots. Not even when a transit strike emptied out half the fleet. The man didn't call in. He clocked in. That morning, as the bus rolled past the naval base gates, a new recruit stepped on. Uniform crisp, haircut tight, movements sharp. Good morning, sir, he said. Instinct more than courtesy. Thomas gave no reply. Just flicked his eyes to the mirror, then forward again. The recruit took a seat near the front. Just 3 passengers on board. But his eyes kept drifting toward the driver, toward the way he moved, the silence, the weight. There was something familiar in how the man sat, the kind of presence you don't earn from mileage, the kind you build under pressure, in places maps don't show. There was something in the way the driver moved, too exact to be casual, too fluid to be forced. The recruit watched as Thomas scanned each side mirror with silent precision, hands shifting gears like he'd been born behind a dashboard. Before every turn, there was the slightest realignment of his spine, like an old drill checked off a list no one else could see. At the Market Street stop, an elderly woman stepped up with grocery bags in both arms. One tore mid-step, spilling apples across the floor. Without comment, Thomas eased the brake, shut down the engine, and crouched to collect them, one by one. Slow, steady, not a grunt, not a word. Just the clean, efficient motion of someone who didn't do kindness for thanks. The woman stammered something grateful. He just gave a faint nod and returned to his seat. From the third row, the recruit narrowed his eyes. Something didn't track. This wasn't just an old man riding out a pension on a city route. His balance, his control, even the way he breathed felt trained. As more riders boarded, the bus slowly filled. Phones lit up. Heads leaned against windows. Most barely glanced up. They saw a black man at the wheel, gray around the edges, hands worn like driftwood. But they didn't really see him. But the recruit did. He caught the faint outlines of long-healed scars, not the kind from kitchen accidents, the kind you don't talk about. He saw how Thomas subtly scanned every boarding passenger, calm but thorough. The posture? Still squared. No slump, even 3 hours deep into a shift. This wasn't a driver. This was a sentinel. When the bus reached the military training center, the recruit rose but paused at the door. Thanks for the ride, sir. For the first time, Thomas looked directly at him. A blink of eye contact, then forward again. The next morning arrived clean and cloudless. The recruit boarded early and claimed the same seat, this time choosing his spot like a sniper setting angle. The sun began its slow rise as they curved near the pier. And right then, sunlight flooded through the driver's window, landing across Thomas's arm. The recruit saw it clearly this time. Beneath dark, weathered skin and softened by time, the outline of an eagle, anchor, and trident appeared. His chest tightened. At the next stop, when the front cleared out, he leaned forward just slightly. "Sir," he said, voice hushed. "Were you ever—" He didn't finish the question. Didn't have to. A red light turned green. The engine rumbled. Without looking back, Thomas spoke. "I was. Just that." But that was all it took. The recruit leaned back, quiet. Not because there was nothing left to say, but because everything had already been said. For the rest of the ride, neither spoke. But the silence had changed. It wasn't emptiness anymore. It was recognition. It was history, folding into the present. And by late afternoon, word had already spread. Not officially, not publicly, but in the way it always does among those in uniform. A name, a face, a whisper that someone real had been riding Route 12 all along. It started as whispers, over lunch trays, in gear lockers, beneath barracks bunks. Old head driving Route 12, might be a frogman. "You serious?" Harper saw the mark, said it was the trident. Ink don't lie. By the third day, it wasn't just talk. On a military subreddit, a post lit up overnight. "There's a legend driving the Coronado bus. Anyone know the man with the seal tattoo?" Half a country away, retired Chief Marcus Denton paused mid-scroll. That name, Thomas, nudged something loose. He remembered a rumor from a base in Da Nang, something whispered late at night, when war stories mixed with superstition. He picked up the phone, called a teammate who now worked inside the Pentagon. Saturday morning. Route 12 rolled to its usual stop by the naval gates. But instead of 2 or 3 riders, Thomas saw 8 figures waiting in tight formation. Fresh cuts, polished boots. They boarded without a sound. Each gave a crisp nod. One instinctively moved to salute, then caught himself mid-motion. No one spoke. Thomas's eyes lingered just slightly on each face, holding a fraction longer than routine demanded. Monday came. Thomas pulled the lever. The bus door opened with its usual hiss. Only this time, a figure in full-dress uniform stepped aboard. Lieutenant Colonel James Westfield. Naval Intelligence, historian, SEAL. The recruits on board rose without instruction. Westfield walked the aisle slow, his shoes echoing in the stillness. He stopped beside Thomas, waited for the door to close. "Sir," he said, voice level. "Permission to ride." Thomas exhaled through his nose. Their eyes met for the first time. "You've got a seat, Colonel." Westfield sat behind him. A long minute passed. Then, in a quieter tone, "I pulled the files. Commander Griggs, SEAL Team 2. 3 tours. Bronze Star with Valor. Twice MIA. Both times returned. Both times mission completed. Wounded or not." Thomas's knuckles flexed on the steering wheel. Subtle. Controlled. "That man," he said finally, "was laid to rest a long time ago." "With respect," Westfield answered. "Men like that don't stay buried. Not really." By noon, the truth had landed where rumors couldn't reach. The silent man on Bus 12 had once been Commander Thomas Griggs, one of the most effective team leaders of the Vietnam era. His records remained sealed, but among those who served, his name held weight. No one asked why he drove a bus. Some men earned peace wherever they could find it. By Wednesday, the first pickup at the naval base had 15 standing in formation. No chatter, just nods. Silent respect. Thomas didn't change a thing. Same posture, same calm, same route. But when they reached the drop-off near the training field, he glanced into the rearview mirror. One face stood out. "Harper," he said. The name landed like a brick. "At night, always track your corners. That's where green recruits get caught." The young man blinked. "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." As they filed off, Thomas turned his eyes back to the road. His sleeve stayed rolled, just as it always had. Not revealing the tattoo, but no longer hiding it either. Some truths don't shout. They simply remain. If you'd honor the ones who don't ask for attention, drop a word of respect below. And so the story of Commander Griggs began to ripple, quiet, steady, through the ranks, unseen at the surface, unmistakable underneath. Within 2 weeks, every base, barrack, and backlot around town had heard the same name passed quietly. The man on Route 12 wasn't just a driver. He was once a shadow in the field. They said the files on his missions were mostly redacted, that some pages still came back blacked out, decades later. Someone tipped off the press. One afternoon, as Thomas finished his post-shift checks, a local reporter approached with notebook in hand. "Commander Griggs, sir. We'd love to do a story. Your service, your quiet example. No interviews," Thomas said flatly, tightening a valve on the rear brake line. "And it's just Thomas now." The reporter smiled awkwardly. "It could really inspire the younger generation, sir. Especially the new sailors." Thomas straightened slowly. His voice didn't rise, but it held steel. "Young sailors don't need my past. They need their own future." The man backed off, but the story didn't stop there. Military publications tried to reach out. Emails went unanswered. Calls went nowhere. At the transit center, the admin director noticed the growing stream of Navy uniforms on Bus 12. Quietly, he verified Thomas's identity through public records. Days later, a bronze plaque appeared near the depot bulletin board. "Commander Thomas Griggs. Your silence taught us more than speeches ever could." Thomas said nothing when he saw it, just stood a little taller, if that were possible. His bus shifted. It wasn't just a vehicle anymore. It was sacred ground. Sailors rode quietly now, voices hushed. They left it cleaner than they found it, sometimes even picking up after civilians. Then one morning, a teen climbed aboard with his phone blasting music. He slouched, loud and dismissive. "Yo, Grandpa, this thing got a turbo or what? Some of us got places to be." Before Thomas could speak, a voice cut through from the middle row. "Watch your mouth." It was Harper, no longer just a recruit, but sharper, focused, transformed. "That man earned your right to run your mouth," he said, calm but commanding. The teen blinked, lowered the volume, mumbled something that sounded like an apology. Thomas caught Harper's eye in the mirror. No smile, just a quiet nod. That week, the Naval Special Warfare Prep School sent an official invite. They wanted Thomas to speak at graduation. He declined. Not with email or phone, but with a handwritten note now framed in the commanding officer's office. "Some of the finest I knew never came home. If you're going to salute, make it count. Start with them." A local high school teacher, son of a Vietnam vet, began a new elective, Modern Valor in Silence. It used Thomas's quiet presence to show that some kinds of heroism don't come with medals or speeches. Something shifted in town. Veterans started getting real acknowledgement in diners and markets, not just "thank you for your service" nods, but real, present-day respect. Then one Tuesday, a tall man in civilian clothes stepped onto Bus 12. The fit, the bearing, the way he stood. Thomas recognized him instantly. Senator James Morrison, former SEAL, chair of the Armed Services Committee. He said nothing, rode the entire loop in silence. Then, before stepping off, he placed a weathered coin on the dash. It bore the insignia of SEAL Team 2, from their time. Thomas didn't move it. It stayed there. And Harper? He kept a small notebook tucked in his gear bag. One entry read, "Every ride shows me what leadership looks like when it doesn't need to prove itself." Every turn he made, every mirror glance, every brake tapped exactly where it needed to be. Thomas never just drove, he patrolled. Only the terrain had changed. When a young recruit once asked him directly, "What was your bravest moment, sir?" Thomas gave his usual clipped response, delivered with neither pride nor pause. "Showing up the next morning." Always the next morning. The recruit blinked, unsure what he meant. Later, Harper clarified. "He means it's not about the hero moment. It's about who keeps getting up after it. Courage ain't the explosion. It's the repeat." Thomas never reacted to the growing reverence that quietly surrounded him. Never acknowledged the heads that dipped respectfully as he drove past. But when his eyes caught those of his military passengers, there was something there. Not spoken, not surface level, but real. You could feel it in the space between stares. A nod to a life shared, even if the details stayed buried. Then winter bit hard. A bitter January dawn. Winds slicing through the naval district. At 0545, Bus 12 rolled up as always. But the man behind the wheel wasn't Thomas. No announcement. No note. Just a substitute in the seat. The driver was fine. Did the job. But the difference was felt in the details. Stops came seconds too slow. Turns rode the edge wider. The route was driven, but not owned. By day 2, whispers moved through the barracks. "Where is he?" Day 3 came. Still no sign. Military passengers started to ride a little quieter, not out of protocol, but unease. They noticed the absence not just in timing, but in the air itself. The edge was missing. The heartbeat had skipped. For a man who built his reputation on never missing a shift, who showed up through blizzards, floods, and walkouts, this silence felt wrong. Harper rode in the second row, his jaw set. Every movement of the replacement driver was measured, compared. Not out of critique, out of concern. There was no plaque saying Griggs was missing, no status update. Just a vacancy that pulled more weight than any announcement ever could. By that evening, Harper sat alone in the training center, writing in the back of his notebook. Discipline isn't loud. It doesn't warn you when it's leaving. You just notice the moment it's gone. Still, the following morning, the recruits returned to the stop like clockwork. Some checked their watches more often, some stayed silent, and all eyes looked up as the bus turned the corner. But again, it wasn't him. The substitute nodded politely. The ride was smooth. On paper, nothing was wrong. But in the bones of every man aboard, something was missing, and the question none of them said aloud now hung heavy in the cold morning air. What happens when the most dependable man you've ever known doesn't show up? On the fourth morning, he was back. Same boots, same movements, same wordless rhythm. Thomas wiped the mirrors, checked the gauges, and opened the door. Nothing out of place. Except one thing. A folded American flag now sat behind his seat, locked in a glass display case. Triangular. Heavy. Sacred. No one asked. They didn't need to. Someone close had gone home for good. In the back row, Harper quietly removed his cap and held it to his chest for the entire ride. The other military passengers followed without prompt. No orders. Just instinct. Thomas said nothing, but his eyes met theirs in the mirror. Steady, storm dark, deeply grateful. 3 more years passed, and every morning, Bus 12 rolled forward with the same exactness. Same seat, same breath, same silence. Recruits started calling the ride part of the pipeline, as if sitting quietly on that bus beside a man who didn't speak, but meant everything, was its own rite of passage. When the transit department announced Thomas's retirement, there was no bulletin, no formal event. He'd asked for none. But on that final morning, as the early sunlight stretched across the pavement, every seat on Bus 12 was filled. Civilians, technically. But their posture, discipline, and stillness said otherwise. Veterans. Active duty. Recruits. Uniforms traded for quiet respect. The ride lasted 40 minutes. Not one word was spoken. When the bus finally pulled into the depot, Thomas eased it into position and paused. In the center of the lot stood a new stone marker. The surrounding buses had formed a perfect V-shape around it. Etched into the base, heroes don't announce themselves. They just show up. Thomas read it once, nodded, and quietly gathered the few things that belonged to him. As he stepped off, the passengers exited too, forming 2 silent rows on either side of his path. No salutes, no clapping, just stillness. Each stood at perfect attention, and as Thomas walked through them, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, the moment froze in time. Near the lot's edge, Harper waited, now in uniform, now an officer, standing next to a clean Navy pickup. "Need a lift, Commander?" Thomas paused, gave a single nod. "Appreciate it, Lieutenant." A photographer from the base paper captured the image just as it happened. An aging man, walking away from a bus, flanked by 2 lines of silent warriors. No fanfare, no quotes. The photo spread through inboxes, units, and quiet barracks halls around the world. The caption read, "Commander Thomas Griggs, SEAL Team 2. No stage, just a steering wheel." Over time, the name faded from the news, but on base, the story never left. New recruits still heard it whispered during orientation. Instructors passed it down like a code. Excellence isn't loud. It's consistent. It shows up, every single day, even when no one's watching. Just like the man who once drove Bus 12.